All right, today we're going to replace the clock spring on a 2006 Nissan Titan. I first disconnected the negative terminal on the battery to make sure nothing gets shocked. And under this airbag here, I want the capacitor inside the airbag. I'll show you how to discharge that in just a moment. But behind the steering wheel, there's a couple of, here it is right here. There's a couple of covers we'll take off, and we'll get after getting the steering wheel off and go from there. All right, these are 10mm screws on the side here. And so good luck finding an instrument that you have that's thin enough to get in those holes to get a 10mm bolt out. Do that on both sides. Okay, now we've got the screws out. We're going to remove this off. Do it carefully because there's a live airbag behind it. However, what we'll do is make sure that we disconnect the orange and yellow connectors, and then we'll disconnect the ground wire. We've had the battery negative terminal off for more than probably 5 minutes just to be safe. But the way that you get these off is to pry these up. Now I have a tool here that I've gotten from a kit that I use to get paneling off, and it's proved to be extremely useful. But it has a number of little gadgets that are good for a lot of interesting work. Save you a lot of money. So pop these up. Let me figure out how to get under them with 2 hands. Stand by. Okay, got under here with this one. Pop that up like so, and then it just comes right off. Once that's off, then we're going to remove the ground wire. Okay, I did find it useful to pull the little tab back on the very, very top of the wire. I'll point to it with my instrument, but first let me set this airbag down in the back seat. And I'm going to point it upward because if it does explode, I'd like it to explode the plastic upward, not the metal shards upward. So what I'll point out is right here, right about here, there's a little tab that I pushed backward. I pushed in and it slid off a lot easier. I got a 3/4 inch socket. I'm just breaking it loose right here in the middle. Okay, once I move that nut off of the middle of the column, I'm actually going to mark the top center, and it looks like there's already a mark here, so this is good. There's already a little divot here and a mark there at the top to let me know where the alignment is when I'm done here. All right, let's just push in, push in on this side right here, and then pull out. And then that remains here. Notice they're routed under this piece of metal here. And we'll have to remember all this when we put all this back together. I want to make sure I get a good memory of what it looked like prior to me going in. Next thing I'll do is I'll take off the 2 screws under the steering wheel here. All right, what I found, got this steering wheel off after I marked it, was hitting it backwards like this a few times, kind of on both sides with my fist, hitting it backwards, and it finally broke it loose and it came off as such. You see how the wires are going to go back through when we're done. And now we're to the clock screw. So I got these 2 that just went through. Everything else stayed on the steering wheel. So that's still on. I believe I have to take these 2 parts off. I already took these 2 screws on bottom off. So let's see how loose this is and how much work it's going to be to get off. I do see access here, which means there's potentially one on the other side. Let's get those off, and then let's see what we can do about getting that off. Okay, it's just another Phillips head screw. We'll get that off. Okay, I found getting this little tool in here and just popping it out until it popped. Here and here seemed to work. And then from there, okay, from there all right, I want to be careful with it not to break the clips any worse than they might get broken otherwise. All right, shake those loose like they're connected on the back side, so I'll get the top off first. All right, I have to get the key in, shift the gear, but we'll see. Okay, because that's connected behind the gear shift. So we don't have to get that off anyway, I don't believe. Let me get the bottom off then. So it comes out Get it around this handle here. Carefully. There we go. Perfect. All right. There we go. All right, so I'm just looking at this. There's some connectors right here that I'll need to get off, and I'll use that little hook tool I have to unleash those. And then I believe there's 2 hardware screws here, Phillips head, here and here. And then underneath here is a gray and yellow. And the way I understand it, you want to get the yellow off, the gray off first. And we got to figure out how to get those off because they're stair-stepped, and I'll show you that when I get them off. All right, that worked. With a flathead screwdriver, I pushed it down like so on the gray. I'll do the same here. I'll push here, and then it releases just like that. So I got those 2 out, and then when you pull those out, you'll see that they're sort of linked together. And that's why you want to do the gray one first. And I'll work on the top ones in a moment. I'll get these out with the Phillips head screwdriver. And in fact, let me get those out with the same tool I mentioned earlier. Having one hand hold this and do this at the same time has proven to be difficult, but all right, you push the little pin down here, push that pin down, it looks like it'll slide out. Okay, I've got the bottom connectors out. I got this one out. I've got the 2 screws out. It's very loose, but there's something holding it in. When I find it, okay, I found it. It's a clip right here at the top, right here. So reach your finger behind there, press down, and then this comes right out, just like that. There we go, we got it out. Now let's, all right, you just want to remove the side components just like this. Once you get those off, we'll just slide them right into the new one, just like this. Okay, it will snap, you just gotta push a little harder, but I wanna set these in first. I'll get these in place first, and then I will put these back in and line it all up when I slide it in. Okay, reconstruction is going a lot faster than deconstruction. So I snap these in on bottom, I snap the thing in on top, and then I'm gonna snap this in up here. Should click. Well, something should happen. Okay, that works. All right, yep, it's on. And then I'm gonna screw these down, and yep, and then we'll put the bottom cap on and then screw that in on the side. Yeah, it should go back together a lot faster. Okay, I did find it useful to try to get these in to go all the way. I found a good clamp, but that seemed to really do the trick to get that yellow one in. I'm gonna get the gray one in, but I want to make sure they clicked in before I put this all back together. I think that's the way it's got to go. Yellow first, then gray. What you couldn't see is that this screw going back in would not bite into that hole. So what I ended up doing is taking one from the one I had previously and put it in now that side there on that side, and then I'll do the same thing on this side here. It actually bit the first time. So again, I got to clicked it in at the top, buckled in the white buckle, got those seated appropriately, and I'm just putting them back together. All right, I've got this back on over that, and now I'm going to snap these in together and see if that'll hold them in place while I screw that screw back. Okay, that was in fact the case. I think I got most of them snapped back in, except right here on the end. Right here on the end, I couldn't get that to go back together. I could keep playing with it for a minute, but I really don't care. In fact, let me get yep, that's snapped in. And then if that goes in, great. If not, no big deal. But so far, I come back to where I was. It's off. And yep, we're getting there. Okay, just got the side screw back in and pop in this little buttonhole cover again. Perfect. It's like somebody had already accessed at one point for something before I did. And I've owned this truck for 20 years, so I don't know. Okay, one thing I noticed is that this right here has to come off, but I think it's there to keep it in place, at least in the general orientation until you get these on. But when you wire these back through, the orange will be on the left, yellow will be on the right, because the back of the airbag has it in that order. Okay, you can feel it kind of seats itself down in there, and that's good. Those are lined up about as close as I can tell to what they were before, which is perfect. It might be off one notch. Let me just try. You know what? I think that's exactly where it was. All right, and now this should snap back in. There here. heard a click, and then I'll hook the airbag back up. We're getting close to being finished. But first I'm going to set this nut back on. I thought I saw something about this being torqued down to 100 foot-pounds, but might be too high. I watch a lot of videos before I attempt anything like this, and I can't remember what video it was I saw, but I always watch at least one, maybe 2, 3 videos if I can find them. But what I do have is this tool here that I used, which was a breaker bar, but you know, I can certainly tighten it back down that way. But it'd be better safe than sorry. I'll get back to you if I find anything on that. All right, you know what? I just torqued it down to what seemed reasonable. That thing is not coming off. I tightened it down pretty good. If it starts to get loose when I'm driving, I'll do what I did to get this off this far, and I'll tighten it back again and read the spec. But as of right now, that thing's not moving anywhere. In fact, I might just tap it a few times like this just to settle it in, and then do what I just did to hand tighten it, but not too tight. All right, back to the airbag. I'm gonna put the ground on first. It might click again because I had that little pin before. And I'll put the orange and the yellow in, and I'll push the pins in the back in. In fact, they kind of popped back on, but I will, these are the new ones, so I will make sure they're raised before I set them on, and then push them down once I get them in. All right, these wires had very little to give in them, and I may have been able to pull them out a little further before I put all this back together. I don't know, didn't check, because I want to go pull it back apart to find out, but I did have to stand up to get those to buckle in, but they are in. Now I'm going to settle this back into the steering wheel, and I'm going to use those 10mm, use that 10mm, put those back in this way, and should be all good to go. In fact, I may test the horn, because that was the whole reason I did this in the first place. All right, we're all done but the cleanup now. Let me tighten that back down with a wrench. But I got everything put back together, and toot, here we go. I'll bet you my cruise control. I had my cruise control as I worked on that steering column for over 2 years. I just did not know the clock spring was such an integral part of the electrical system, but on the steering wheel. But apparently it is. The reason I knew I had those problems was because I was turning, well, the horn stopped working, and I checked all the fuses. I actually replaced the horn itself, and nothing helped. I thought that would be the problem. It was not. What I finally figured out is one day I was turning to the right and my horn worked, which I figured, okay, now there's something wrong, and I know in the steering column, and that was really what gave it away. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, but it shouldn't. Let's see if the cruise control works. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens, and then I'll clean it up. Pretty excited. 2006 20-year-old truck. All right, let's see here. 157,000 miles. Let's see if this works. Look at that, cruise control is back. All right, baby. Success. Have a great day, everyone.